would you advise, Anand, to your entrepreneur if you found that his star employee, who's otherwise bringing in revenue, but in every other human aspect is not gelling with the culture of the organization?
Again, it's very important, like I said, the CEO has to interview each and every person to form, to make sure that all the hires are well thought about, to form the culture of the company. An important aspect is that if you interview 5 people, right, who should you choose? Should you choose the smartest, the most wow, the best in communication person, or should you choose the person who's the most hungry and really is keen to prove himself, right? That's the point. The point is we lay too much stress on verbal and visual communication skills while hiring somebody, okay, great resume, talks very well, walks very well, dresses well. I mean, this guy, is not the right fit probably, right? I mean, you want somebody who has a little bit of a handicap, I mean, probably he's come from a smaller town and probably is not studied in the best college and probably his parents are not in the army or not a big shot, it's just the son of some teacher. Okay? That's the kind of person you need to hire, look for the right talent and it's very difficult to judge talent from just a 15-minute interview. Right? So for us, it was important that everybody would go through multiple tests, okay, whatever the domain be. And, there were times when I would say, what, this guy is so good, okay, either he's too good, I will not hire him. But if he's average in the rest of the things, I want somebody who my competitors will not poach. I was in Pune and we were for a while we used to worry that we'll lose our employees to Infosys and Cognizant and those kind of companies, and my thumb rule was ideally the person should have a stutter, I mean very non-political, but it was very helpful. These guys, and I would make them managers. I would just take an engineer with 1 year out of college and say you are the manager, go learn how to be a manager, how to communicate. And these guys actually thought, what, I'm from a small village and here I am, I'm a manager. I'll never go back to Infosys because there I'll have to spend 10 years before I become a manager. So yeah, you have to be brave. Talent is a big war. I mean, you hire the best employee that you can recruit, but that'll last only for 6 months.
Yeah. I'm going to switch topics here a little bit. So when this panel discussion was going to happen today, I went up yesterday to my male employee, one of the people who works with me, and I said, tell me how it is working with a female boss. And I was giving him my best smile yesterday, hoping that, he would say it's very easy and, you're great. And he's worked with a male boss before. And he said, you're just a numbers driver. And you are a slave driver. I was shocked that he said that. He said that his male boss was far softer and easier on him. On the one hand, I was quite proud. On the other hand, I didn't particularly like it because I thought I was this very sweet, nurturing type of person. But clearly, that's not how the image I'm projecting to my team. Is it any different? You have a female boss, and I don't know if she's around here today, but speak freely and we'll protect you. How is it to have a woman as a boss and a woman as an entrepreneur?
Well, in my opinion, to be very honest, there wouldn't be a difference between a woman or a man entrepreneur because it is very individualistic. Yes, the approach might be different because women tend to be a little more on a sensitive side. So maybe given a certain situation, the approach towards that would be different. But the final decision which is taken would be, which has to be very ideal and just for that particular situation or the company. So in my opinion, it's not really about woman or a man entrepreneur. I feel that in her place, had there been a man, also I would have enjoyed working with the company. It would have been, it is more to do with the nature of the individual and not the nature of a woman or a man.
Right, like Ms. Chanda Kochar said today, there's gender blindness to entrepreneurship. So any views that you have, Mohit, on whether gender makes a difference? Do you think it would have been easier if you were a woman as an entrepreneur?
I don't know.
Do you think women have it easier as entrepreneurs? And you're sitting in front of a lot of women, so that answer better be...
I don't know, but I know what I realize is that My wife Priya, she was part of the company when we started, and then she took a long break, 4 or 5 years after we have a son. She joined back recently, looking after HR and admin in the company. And she told me once that, Mohit, your problem is you don't give feedback to your VPs. You give them too much of freedom, and I talked about it. And when they don't do something right, you really don't walk up to them and tell them, hey, 1, 2, 3, this is not, this is not so right, etc. And I think that made a huge difference, you know. And we recently started a feedback culture in the company. We really went out and read some books on the feedback, what it take to give a right feedback and how it should be given, etc. And there are lots of things that are available actually. We made a feedback form, we said, and I realized that the people had done so much of work around it. I think she could actually see those things. And I had co-founders, I had 3 more co-founders. Nobody gave me that advice for the last 5 years. They've been with me for 7 years. Nobody gave me that advice. It's such a simple thing. To tell somebody what is that they have done wrong or right, and what is the impact of that act, either bad or good, and what do you expect them to do next time? What is the alternate behavior? It's such a simple thing. I even maintain a log saying that who did what and what feedback I gave them and did I give them a feedback or not. It becomes so specific to talk to them about after in a quarterly review, saying these are right things, which I appreciate, please continue doing them. So I think maybe she brought a perspective. So I don't know whether I have only one boss, which I talked about. So.
What about you, Anand? What has been your experience?
Women make the best entrepreneurs, best bosses, and best employees. Period.
I second it. I agree.
To the gallery. He's playing to the gallery. And he does a good job of it. I think you know, somebody said that, you know, women are great motivators. There's a Zig Ziglar quote that said that you have to motivate just like you bathe every day. But I do think that women tend to remember to motivate very often, because I think sometimes just as a gender you're conditioned to positive reinforcement yourself, and you're conditioned to providing positive reinforcement sometimes. So you do it more often, or you do it more naturally, especially if you have a nurturing tendency, which, as my colleague tells me, I don't. So with this, I'm going to throw open the forum for any questions, and I see already a lot of hands up. Oh my goodness. So can we have a mic, maybe starting there?
Hi, Mohit. Hi.
Hi, Kavita.
Great to see you at this forum. I have a very small question. Probably a lot of people out here don't know that Mohit started with the group of friends. Those 5 people he mentioned were, some of them were his close friends. I want to know from you how easy or difficult it is to get your close friends as employees or as your partners. And in this journey of last 5 years, how many times did you, go through that dilemma? I shouldn't have hired them, or I should have, fired them, or, how you basically sailed through that dilemma, because they were so close to you, you couldn't say no to things which were going wrong, or you probably couldn't walk up to them and tell them that it's wrong, or let's do it this way or that way.
Thanks, Kavita. Good to see you. She has worked with us for an year. The only people you should work with as a co-founder are the one whom you know, whom you have worked with in the past, who are your friends, or in some way you know them, right? Because founders spend more time even beyond the business hours. You'll eat together, you'll spend time together, right? It's like a family. It's so close, and you don't have money. The only entertainment you have is the jokes with each other. I'm talking about the years which I had at least. And you spend so much time with each other that you better have a good chemistry, and you better be friends with each other. But not everybody grows with the company in the same pace. Company grows too fast, and not everyone grow accordingly, proportionately. It's a different pace. And not only that, not everybody contributes equally. And while in the early years, the commitment is more important than the competence. You pay more importance to commitment because he is there, he's helping you out, all of that thing. But as the company grows, you have number pressure, you have a target and you're a quarter, and that competence start coming into play. I think we've taken tough calls. One of the founders was probably not fit for one role, and we had a straight talk saying that you can't do this, and we shifted him to something else. I think we've done all of those things. I remember not giving increments to some of my co-founders while I was giving increments to others because I said expecting not met. And yes, I do have a dilemma in terms of should I replace them at times, etc. But I believe that the key was that they were already committed, they were hardworking. The key was to find a right fit for their roles, right fit for their talent. And I think we succeeded maybe 70%, 80% in that.
It also depends on the rapport you have. Sometimes if the entrepreneur has a good rapport with the co-founders or with the friends that they started the business, you can tell them, you're not maybe growing at the same pace or things have changed and there's another role for you. And sometimes, like another co-founder I remember once said about his partner, he said, "Wo apnapan nahi hai." So, the whole place starts becoming very transactional and sometimes those relationships crumble under the pressure of work and results.
In fact, Anand told me once that let's not confuse shareholding with the role you play in the company. They're two different things. You may be a shareholder in the company as a co-founder, founder, CEO, but you're a CEO or a VP is a different thing altogether. So when we talk to them as an employee, the relationship is CEO and a VP. And
we all have to learn to say no. When a real close friend wants to join you, and if you're not very comfortable, learn to say no. Don't say I'll try it out. It's too expensive. You're just trying out a friend in your company.
Sure. Can we have the mic? Sorry, it's there here.
My name is Sudeshna Banerjee. I'm from Kolkata. I run an organization of project management. Nowadays, the trend is those who are coming for interview, they take the offer letter. They're promising you to join after 15 days or 1 month of the notice period, and then they vanish. Switch off, and switch off. Now, how to overcome this solution, this problem?
I'll take this. Yeah, okay. So, it's, as a young company, when we meet a really good candidate, we are dying to hire him. We believe if this guy comes in the company, he'll turn around everything. And we sell the company, we oversell the company, right? I'll go and talk about the culture, I'll talk about the freedom, I'll talk about what we'll do, I'll give you ESOPs, and ESOPs would grow so much, and you will have a fortune, etc., etc. We do all of those things. And that's a very bad thing to do. What I learned now is, after you interview somebody, right, you assess them. And I spend 7 hours, 8 hours with them now at different stages, and we understand whether this guy is right fit or not. I tell them, I'll give you enough time to ask me all questions. I'll answer everything that you want to know. But let me know more about you first. Then we finish this. What I do is, if I like the guy, I really sell the company very well. I sell it on 4 fronts. I tell them the kind of freedom they get over here, and everybody wants that. No, I yet to meet a person who will say, no, I want to work with instruction all the time. Everybody loves freedom. And I say, this is what we are. So we give them the freedom. I tell them how he's a fit to the company. I really explain it in detail, saying that these are the kind of things this company does. This is how we are. This is the fit you have. I tell them how Carvaan is positioned in the market today to become so great in the next 5 years or 10 years. How could we be a world-class company in 5 years? And therefore sell them a fortune, saying that, this is how you are going to make lots of money. You want to buy a bungalow through Carvaan. And I also tell them that, how can I help your family cope up with this change? Maybe the family has certain benefits from the last employment. They have a loan which has already been paid by the company. Maybe they have to relocate from Delhi to Bombay. So freedom, fit, fortune, and family. I worry about all these 4 things and sit with the guy and really sell him the company. Once we are done, we have won this guy and do a great job of selling. Because a right candidate, the A player, he has so many options to choose from. Why would he come and choose your company, right? So that's what we do. And we have, I think, good success of people returning back and joining us.
You have to spend a lot more time when you hand over the offer letter. Usually when these trainees come, their parents will be waiting outside. Go outside, shake hands with them, convince them also. All of that, absolutely what Mohit said.
Another option would also be to, after you've given an offer letter and after all of this has been done, to also stay in touch with the individual on a regular basis, maybe every few days, and keep sensing. You will get that sixth sense whether this person is trying to slip out, whether they're avoiding your calls, and you'll realize whether he's going to join or not. So somewhere it'll give you an idea.
By the notice period.
Yeah. So
You
so
should be
wrong
happy this
selection,
dishonest
right?
person didn't join you.
So aren't you happy you made a wrong selection, the guy didn't come, right? So you need to change the selection. I mean, see, a lot of startups will face this problem, but like Mohit said, one, you have to select the right people, and two, you have to go the extra mile. You know, for example, if you want to rent a house or rent an office, right? And the landlord is not saying yes or no, what do? We send a box of chocolates, right? Or as we were discussing with Purvi, you know, flowers are so outdated. So you have to really woo people. I mean, even though it's a trainee, it's a valuable employee, and they'll join you if you really persist.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Please.
My name is Shubha Lakshmi. I work for a environmental NGO, Bombay Natural History Society. I head their education center here in Mumbai. And I have some three serious HR issues. I will be happy if the panel can help me with that. One is that for last 5 years, I've been seeing that my center has become a training center for many of the recruits. They come, they get trained, they spend 1 year, and then they quit. And it's very difficult to retain them, and sometimes they don't give you a hint also that they're going to leave the organization, and we spend so much of time in training them. So how to really solve this problem? That's the number one. Second problem is that in a team, when you start seeing people performing differently and you feel that one who is performing well should get an incentive or a promotion. But when I give a promotion to a person, suddenly there is a change in the performance. The performance goes down, so there is no consistency. Then I feel that, did I take a wrong decision of promoting this person who is no more a performer? So how to really make that right decision? Third question, when we talk about competencies, that okay, we are looking for a certain mix in an individual, that you want good communication skills, good planning skills, etc., etc. But sometimes dedication and reliability becomes a more important issue than the competency, because a person who is more competent ditched me to the last hour when I needed the person. And a person whom I felt is not competent but stayed with me throughout. So where I wanted to sack that staff and promote someone else, the other person whom I was planning to promote is leaving. So how to deal with this situation? I'm sure you would have underwent this situation, so it will be really great if you can help me. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask Jer to answer the first question, about people quitting in 1 year just after they've been trained. Now, you've been with this firm for 4 years. What motivated you to stay back?
See, motivation actually in the organization was, like I've mentioned before also, it was flexibility, which was the factor which, led me to be with the organization for a long time. Now, if there is a problem of employee retention which is existing, then maybe you need to review that is it happening with every employee, as you know, the numbers. Maybe some systems within the company are not right, which are not employee friendly or not employee oriented. So maybe after you do a thorough review, you might be able to get some answers from it. Are you too very strict with the employees? Are the employees happy with the facilities which are given to them, or the working condition which is provided to them? Are we too very strict with them, with the employees? So if you have reviewed certain questions, if you put down certain questions of your own, and when you answer those, maybe it might help you to find an answer to your question as to why is it happening that the employees are leaving the job.
And also on the performance, I think, a lot of them sometimes perform very well on the job, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's potential. It ties in with the first question that you have. So you need to be very sure about performance in a particular job and potential to do one job higher or two jobs higher. And sometimes people come in, they might be very good at what they're doing, but they don't see growth prospects, so they decide that they want to leave. The reverse is true as well, that somebody who's very good at what they're doing today, they may not be very good at doing one step up or two step up. So when you are making promotion choices, be very careful in evaluating performance and evaluating potential, and then decide whether a person is promotion worthy or not. For performance, you can always reward them, recognize them, and make enough mechanisms to keep them motivated to keep performing in that current job. But to promote, you need a certain level of potential to do one job higher or two jobs higher. And that's something that I would leave.
Yeah, I think they answered it, but there's a company called Gallup. Gallup has a set of 11 questions for measuring employee engagement. They're very good question, fundamentally like, do you get a chance to do what you're really good at? Do you have best friend at the work? If you really have best friend at the company, you're unlikely to go, because you can go and talk to her and talk to him about your problems and things like that. It says that, do you really do what you like to do? It says, do you have the equipments to perform your role? It says that, are you learning something on the role? Does somebody appreciate you in the last 7 days, etc. 11 questions, very nice. That has been existing for the last 5-6 years. And Google it, you will easily get it. Run an employee engagement survey in the company. You will know what are the problem areas, whether people are in a wrong role, whether they don't really belong to the place, etc., etc. We did employee engagement survey. Our score is around about 6 point, something like 6 or so. 6 is a decent score, not very good. And we understand what are the areas, which are the people where we need to go. So I think...
Sure.
I have studied a lot of family-managed companies, promoter-driven companies, where the promoter is the whole and soul. He has put a lot of equity. He is the largest shareholder in the company. The problem I have noticed is that he has a problem of letting go. He wants to have the final say in all strategic decisions. And that has been now studied. Even if he has the best professionals at the head, CFO, CEO, ultimately he wants all the decisions to go through him. And that has been seen even in listed companies. You have any ideas on that?
How many people here like to have the say in their own company, the final say? Be honest. So there is a large...
Be honest, because I have studied 150 companies.
You studied 150 companies?
Yeah, their annual reports, I've seen them. I have gone through their entire, corporate governance reports. I've done a study on corporate governance. And ultimately, even the board of directors, the whole thing about independent directors, not, getting into tussles with the promoter. They say ultimately, it's your money, it's your finance. So you take the final decision whether he is doing right or wrong.
But for all those who raise their hands saying that they want to have a final say, I believe you will not go for the vacation, 1 month vacation ever, right? You will never leave your office at 5 o'clock. You will never spend so much time with your family. If you want to have final say on everything, I mean, you had it, right? You will be more stressed. And I said, you will never have vacation, etc., etc. So my point is, let it go. One is, don't take it too seriously. It's just a business. Second is, you can always find very competent people. The people are more competent than what we are. And they will take a better decision. Let them take.
Yeah. Everything is done, but still he has to have the last say.
I think that's... that is a trait of maybe just people and personalities, not so much just promoters. Yes, promoters, because like you said, it is an attitude of this is my money, my sweat, my toil, and absolutely we all as entrepreneurs don't spend as much time with family or make a lot of sacrifices, so you feel like you want to have the last say. But at the same time, I think you evolve and change as a person if you have a high learning quotient and a learnability. If you are a learning entrepreneur, you're a learning person in general, you will move on from saying, I want the last say, to saying, I will let my people make the choices and the decisions. Yeah. And I would imagine that you've come from being the person making all the decisions to being a person making fewer decisions.
Yeah, just decision whom to hire, who should be in the company. Then they can decide what they want to do.
Yeah, as an investor, it's a red flag for me if the promoter wants everything to, to come to him for a decision.